we take our position to start? Okay. So I would like to open this session that is dealing with Ealing West Med Macro-Regional Workshop European Flagship Action for Cold Ironing Ports. In this session, we will be talking mostly about OPS and also the findings and the outcomes of our project. So let me give you some information about what are my thoughts before our speakers. From the time that we conceived Ealing, onshore power supply, also known as cold ironing or AMP, alternative maritime power, has gained more political, technical, and financial interest. New stricter regulations are already in place, targeting a zero-emission future in maritime transport. We have seen also local communities increasing their pressure to tackle the existing problem of air pollution in urban ports. These two factors, combined with new political proposals of the European Commission, such as the Fuel EU, require specific action in shipping and ports. But still, shore-side power expansion is at an initial phase, and port operators are hesitant to make the needed investments for the installations. And we need to calculate approximately 2 to 5 million per berth. In addition, deficiency in pricing legislation and technical standardization prevent new vessels to be built to OPS specification and the retrofit of the existing ones. But still, all stakeholders involved should join hands on a collective approach to transform the chicken and egg problem into a win-to-win situation. At the broader level, and following the recent drawbacks in the global energy sector, we need to collaborate to ensure energy resilience through green sourcing of electricity, smart grids, and hybrid systems. And energy resilience, of course, is an emerging issue. We all see what's happening now in countries like China, inbreeding with the high prices of oil and natural gas and the lack of energy. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are here in La Spezia Naval Base to present the best solution towards this aim in the context of Ealing. So I will give right on the stage to Jorgen Bier, DG Move, Deputy Head of Unit Ports and Inland Navigation, who is joining us today remotely. So I don't know if Jorgen is hearing us.
I am, thank you very much. I'm right here. I don't know, could you project my slides? Because I have a bit of a problem with that since I only have one screen.
Just give us a second to check it here. One minute.
Here we go. That's great. Then I will just say when you should switch to the next one. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be with you here in this workshop today, and thank you for inviting me to present the Fit for 55 package to you, which, as you probably know, was adopted by the Commission on the 14th of July. I will focus on the measures, especially of importance for maritime transport and ports. But first, I would like to provide you with a brief overview of the context. So if you would show the next slide, please. The EU's goal is climate neutrality by 2050. This is not a vague target. It is actually a commitment and a legal obligation now. And to reach it, we have set an intermediate goal of at least a 55% cut in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. This will put the EU on a realistic and gradual path toward the 2050 target. And for transport, our EU target means reducing the sector's greenhouse gases by 90% by 2050. Maritime transport will also have to contribute. And in line with our strategy on sustainable and smart mobility from December 2020, this ambitious curbing of emissions needs to go hand in hand with enhancing our competitiveness, reinforcing the single market, and creating new opportunities for European business. I think Commission President von der Leyen put it very accurately when she said that the fossil fuel economy has now reached its limits. And against the backdrop of COVID-19, the European Green Deal has become our roadmap for a green and inclusive recovery. If you would show the next slide, please. It shows the Fit for 55 package. It aims to combine the reduction of emissions with measures to preserve nature, to put jobs and social balance at the heart of this transformation. The package consists of a set of interconnected proposals that aim to strike a careful balance between carbon pricing, targets, standards, and support measures. And overall, the carbon pricing is the clear guiding principle. It's a market-based instrument coupled with a social compensation. And the principle is simple. Emission of CO2 must have a price on CO2 that incentivizes consumers, producers, and innovators to choose the clean technologies. However, the analysis shows that pricing mechanisms will not be sufficient in themselves. So to overcome persistent market and non-market barriers, they are therefore complemented by a number of regulatory measures, including in the transport sector. And the need for regulatory measures is also the case for maritime transport. And the next slide will provide an overview of the measures concerning maritime transport and ports in particular. So next slide, please. The first of those, I hope you can see it, it's rather small, but the first one is the emission trading system, ETS, and its gradual extension to maritime from 2023. So carbon pricing via the inclusion of the maritime sector in the ETS will promote the use of more energy efficient ships. However, in order to reach our climate objectives, it is not enough that ships become more energy efficient. They also need to use cleaner fuels. But the use of cleaner fuels will require specific measures. This is because the price difference between conventional marine fuels of fossil origin and renewable low carbon fuels remains high. And this is then where the FuelEU Maritime initiative comes in, as it will stimulate the demand for renewable and low carbon fuels in maritime transport. The next initiative is the Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Regulation, which will address fuel distribution and including also the requirements for onshore power supply in ports. There's the Renewable Energy Directive, which will address the supply of fuels, including renewable fuels for maritime transport. And there's the Energy Taxation Directive that includes the possibility for tax exemptions for shoreside electricity in ports and zero minimum rates for sustainable fuels for a 10-year transitional period. And then for the sake of completeness, the last two initiatives, the Energy Efficiency Directive and the Effort Sharing Regulation, should also be mentioned. And I would now take a closer look on what we exactly propose with the FuelEU Maritime initiative and the proposal for the Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Regulation. So the next slide, please. The introduction of cleaner fuels requires long lead times, and it cannot be delayed any longer. By 2050, renewable low carbon fuels should constitute close to 90% of the fuel mix. And today the sector still almost exclusively uses fossil fuels. So it's also important to note that there's no single technology option that exists for the large variety of ship types and trades. So operators are therefore generally trapped in a wait-and-see attitude when it comes to switching to cleaner fuels. So that's the chicken and egg situation, which was mentioned in the introduction. Now let's look at what we propose in the FuelEU Maritime proposal. It's on the next slide, please. The next slide, please. The FuelEU Maritime proposal therefore introduces requirements on ship operators to reduce gradually the yearly average greenhouse gas intensity of the energy used on board ships. And the proposal requires a 2% reduction by 2025 and goes up to a 75% reduction by 2050. The proposal has the same scope as the ETS, and it gives long-term predictability of the regulatory framework which the operators need in order to invest. The proposal is technology neutral. It is up to the operators to determine which type of fuel will best suit their ships and their particular needs, and at the same time allow them to meet the targets. And in addition, and of particular interest to ports, of course, the proposal will also require passenger and container ships to use onshore power supply when in port, or other zero-emission technologies like batteries or hydrogen. And this is very much in line with the ambition set out in the European Green Deal to reduce emissions from the most polluting ship types in ports. And it's also in line with the initiatives already taken by many ports to promote the use of OPS, including, of course, the Ealing project that we are discussing here today. And in addition, the proposal contains incentives for first movers, as well as monitoring and reporting requirements to ensure effective enforcement of the provisions. Now let's turn to the infrastructure side and the proposal for an alternative fuels infrastructure regulation. It has a strong focus on road transport, which you will see if you would change to the next slide, please. As you can see, it has a strong focus on road transport. The picture here shows an electric car, but it does cover all modes, including maritime. And one of the main challenges with the current directive as it is now is that it leaves target setting to member states. As a consequence, there's a lack of widespread network, and national targets are not enough to reach the Green Deal objectives. And in particular for maritime, there are no mandatory targets for onshore power supply that really work in practice. And these issues are addressed with the new proposal. And if you show the next slide, please, I will mention what the proposal includes in particular as regards waterborne transport. First of all, there are targets for shoreside electricity supply in the 10T maritime ports. The targets mirror the requirements in FuelEU Maritime. They are ambitious, but also realistic, we think, and focus on reducing pollution from the most polluting ship types. So the requirement is that onshore power supply should be available by 2030 to cover 90% of calls for container and passenger ships, the larger ones, over 5,000 GT, in 10T maritime ports, exceeding a minimum annual number of port calls, as you can see here on the slide. The port calls that are not taken into account are port calls under 2 hours to allow sufficient time to plug in and unplug. And also ships using zero-emission technologies, as well as unscheduled calls for reasons of safety or saving life at sea are not counted. And then there are exemptions for islands not connected to the grid. The proposal also includes targets for shoreside electricity supply in 10T inland ports, at least one installation for inland waterways vessels by the 1st of January 2025 in core ports, or the 1st of January 2030 in the comprehensive ports. There are also targets for supply of LNG in maritime ports. An appropriate number of refueling points for LNG should be in place at 10T core maritime ports by the 1st of January 2025 to allow circulation on the core network. And this is in practice unchanged from the current directive. This is what I wanted to say concretely about the proposal. I hope it has given you an idea about what we want to achieve and how. As mentioned before, the FuelEU Maritime proposal complements requirements then in fuel supply and distribution, and it therefore helps breaking this current chicken and egg dilemma, which is affecting the demand and supply of renewable and low carbon maritime fuels. The proposals at EU level are coherent with the initiatives put forward by the EU internationally, for instance, in the International Maritime Organization. And it's also a response to what industry itself is actually asking for, as can be seen in the call to action initiative of more than 150 leading companies and organizations that earlier this month called for global shipping industry to be fully decarbonized by 2050, urging governments to step up actions. So the proposals are now under discussion by the member states and in the European Parliament, and we hope that they could reach agreements sometimes towards the end of next year. Of course, all of this will not happen without investments. So I will now hand over to my colleague, Jérôme Glantenet from our CINEA executive agency, who will talk to you about the financial support that's available at EU level for investments also in OPS, notably under the Connection Europe facility. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Jürgen. And thank you for the insight and the analysis on this Commission regulation and legislation like the Fit for 55, FuelEU and VFIR. So now let's welcome Jerome. He's our project officer in the Alien project. He will be talking about the funding possibilities for OPS infrastructure. Jerome?
Good morning and good afternoon to all the participants, and thank you very much to the organizers for inviting me to the Sea Forum and to this ELING workshop. I will share the screen for my presentation. Do you see it?
Yes, I think you have to maximize the screen a little bit. The screen, this one, yes.
Like this? Okay, thanks. Thank you very much. So indeed, Jürgen has provided a lot of information about the policy priorities and the legislative work ongoing for the transport policy. And then I will focus my presentation for CINEA on the instruments to implement the policy. So the funding opportunities for OPS, we are entering a new CEF program, the period 2021-2027. We have launched the first call for proposal on the 16th of September. So I will give you a quick overview about the funding opportunities for onshore power supply. Maybe one quick word, first of all, about CINEA. CINEA was established on the 1st of April 2021 with the launch of the new multi-annual financial framework. CINEA is the executive agency that builds on the programs managed in both former INEA and EASP agencies. And this new delegation brought more programs to the agency with a significant growth in terms of budget. We are now to 55 billion euros for the programs, and also in the staff with a progressive increase during the whole programming period. And as you can see from the slide, CINEA is responsible for implementing the Horizon Europe Cluster 5 on climate, energy and mobility, the Innovation Fund program that helps creating investments in innovative low carbon technologies, the Connecting Europe facility, the so-called CEF2 now, the LIFE program for environment, the European Maritime Fisheries and Aquaculture Fund, the Renewable Energy Financing Mechanism, and finally, the Just Transition Mechanism for Public Sector and Loan Facility pillar. So this new portfolio of programs will support the European Green Deal strategy that has already been mentioned by Jürgen, which is one of the top political priorities for the European Commission, with ambitious targets for the reduction of GHG emission of 55% by 2030 and to reach climate neutrality by 2050. So CNEA will play here a crucial role as we are the EU focal point for funding green and infrastructure projects. So maybe just a word on what we are co-funding under CEF1, the previous period. So we had 22 actions co-funded on OPS. We had this under different priorities. The first priority was Motorways of the Sea, where we have actions with a maritime link between two ports or several ports. And we have here investments in infrastructure and also investments on vessels sailing on a MOS route in the corresponding maritime ports. And we also have works, but also studies, wider OPS studies that have been implemented with wider benefits. So we had this co-funding rate of 30% for the works and 50% for the studies. We also had 8 actions under the maritime ports priority with the upgrade of maritime port infrastructure with 20% co-funding rates. And then 1 action under the new technologies and innovation, which was a master plan for OPS in the Spanish ports. So all this.
Jerome, sorry to interrupt you, but we have some problems with your presentation, how we see it. So is it possible to change something according to the text that you receive from the technical paper here?
Because you don't see the presentation.
We see the presentation, but there is a black window right in front.
And could you share the presentation from your side? Would it be better? I will stop sharing then, and if you have the possibility to share it from your side.
Okay, we will start sharing the screen from here. Just give us a second.
Thanks.
So now we see the presentation. Let's go. Yes, next text. I think yes, here we are. Yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much. No, just to conclude on that slide, you see the figures and the priorities. Just we had quite significant investments in OPS for this period. With 67 million euros of self-funding for the OPS action. But the ambition, of course, is to accelerate the deployment of OPS in the EU ports for the next period and to go even further than what we co-funded under CEF1. Next slide, please. Just a few words on the healing action. Indeed, this is one of the actions that we co-fund for the CEF1. This is for us a flagship project because it aims to accelerate the deployment of OPS in 16 EU maritime ports, and it really helps contributing to the objectives of the European Green Deal. We think that with this study, we will be able to accelerate the deployment of OPS in different maritime sea basins in Europe, and of course the impact might be important. So we really hope that there will be tangible results for this action, which is a flagship project, and which may have probably will have a catalyzing effect in order to accelerate deployment of offshore side electricity in Europe. We really stick to the fact that it's needed to have timely implementation of the studies. We really need to have the studies implemented as initially foreseen by June 2023, and the subsequent works in the ports should really be implemented for effective deployment of OPS in EU ports by 2025. And the last point is that for the studies, for drilling studies, we would also recommend to follow the guidance on onshore side electricity, on which ENSA agency is currently working. It's a lot of information and a lot of really useful guidelines, especially on the standards that should be really followed when establishing the common framework for OPS in the ports under the healing action. Next slide, please. So the Connecting Europe facility for the new period, 2021-2027. So as a summary, the self-transport budget for the new period is 25.8 billion euros, which is quite stable compared to the previous programming periods. We have stable envelopes for the general envelope, for instance, and also the cohesion envelope, 12.8 billion euros and 11.3 billion euros, with the objective to complete the TEN-T network in transport by 2030, and also have modernization of the network. And we also have a new priority, which is military mobility. And military mobility is about actions relating to the adaptation of the TEN-T network to civilian defense and dual use for 1.7 billion euros. And with this budget, so the main objective is to contribute to the objectives of the Green Deal and to the sustainable and smart mobility strategy, which is piloted by DG Move, and to have to get, I don't see any more the presentation, you see it? Yes, okay. And to get also, I would say, projects aiming to speed up decarbonization of the economy with smarter and safer transport solutions. And at least 60% of the financial envelope will be dedicated to the Union's climate targets. So this is really a strong focus on the climate targets due to the necessity to concentrate the resources on the Green Deal strategy. Next slide, please. Just a quick overview about the call, the first call for the SAFE2 program. So we have launched the call on the 16th of September. We will have a deadline for submission for the applications on the 19th of January 2022. So this gives you sufficient time for the applicants in order to prepare the application and submit it in good conditions. When we will have the evaluation of the proposals from February to April 2022, we will have consultation of the coordination committee and also information of European Parliament in May 2022 on the list of selected proposals that we recommend. The adoption of the selection decision will be in June 2022 with information to the selected participants. And then we will prepare the grant agreements and we will sign the grant agreements to be signed by the end of, by the 20th of October 2022 to start the implementation. Next slide, please. An overview of the call. So the call is in fact several calls, composed of several calls. We have 13 calls as a whole, because we have several priorities, and we have also 77 topics So the calls with the green circles as the one offering funding opportunities for investments on shoreside electricity. You can see the maritime ports for the projects of the core network and comprehensive network for the first 4 calls. We also have in gray the alternative fuels infrastructure facility. You have 2 calls on this facility, which is a bit specific. And the last green circle is about the motorways of the sea priority. So the reason for this large number of topics is that, for instance, it is linked to the location on the network, the budget envelope, and also the different types of actions. Next slide, please. So the first priorities on the maritime projects. So we will have the maritime ports on the core and comprehensive networks. The actions to be supported under these priorities are basic port infrastructure, and the short-side electricity supply is clearly identified as a priority under this priority for the maritime ports. So infrastructure for OPS is clearly a priority. This will be implemented and co-funded with different co-funding rates depending on the general envelope, which is 30% of co-funding rate for the works and 50% for the studies. And also from the cohesion envelope, the cohesion countries, it will go to 85% of co-funding rates. Next. I just want, sorry, for the previous slide, I just wanted to mention that the infrastructure for cruise vessels might be supported under the maritime priority. The cruise vessels are not eligible for other priorities, but for shoreside electricity, it will be possible. Next slide, please. Motorways of the sea. So this is the second priority, and the motorways of the sea. We will be able also to accompany short-side electricity supply with the 2 priorities of motorways of the sea. The first one is the upgrade of port infrastructure with a maritime link with at least 1 core network port of a member state and another core or comprehensive network of another member state. This is the first priority under which we can have the upgrade of the infrastructure, including shoreside electricity supply. And we also have a second priority, which is more related to the wider benefits, what we call wider benefits under the self-regulation and the TEN-T guidelines, and also under this second priority with actions facilitating short sea shipping but not linked to a specific port. It will also be possible to co-fund onshore power supply, and the envelope for the co-funding rates, it will be 50% as motorways of the sea action are more considered as cross-border actions now. So the co-funding rate will be higher than the works in the maritime ports. Next slide, please. So I will end with the alternative fuels infrastructure facility. This is a specific instrument which mixes grants and also financial instruments, especially the support from the EIB, the European Investment Bank. And the alternative fuels infrastructure facility is also dedicated to accompany, support the electrification of ports and supply onshore power supply infrastructure. So this is clearly identified in this priority as well. We also might notice that the costs related to the vessels are not eligible except for short sea shipping. If there is an initial number of vessels needed to quick start the use of supported recharging infrastructure. And in that case, the eligible costs should be limited to the cost difference between a fossil fuel vessel and the zero emission vessel. So the alternative fuels infrastructure facility is also, I would say, a strong instrument in order to support the deployment of OPS in Europe. We will have specific rules about this facility, because we will have a 3-year rolling call of 1.5 billion with 5 deadlines every 6 months. And we will also have an info day on the AFIF on the 14th of October. The date is to be confirmed, but it will be probably on the 14th of October, when you can have all the details about how to apply to this alternative fuel infrastructure facility. And I think this is the end. Maybe next slide. Just to mention that we are quite active on the social networks. We have also Senior's website, under which you will find all the available information about the calls that we have launched on the 16th of September. And so don't hesitate to contact us and to consult Senior's website for more information on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jerome. So just to sum up the opening statements, it looks like the regulation is here that implies OPS, and very soon these investments will not be on a voluntary basis. Some of them will be mandatory. And as Jerome demonstrated, we have a very, very clear funding package involving a lot of possibilities, and we have also a big window for application, meaning that even the projects that are not mature at this level will have the possibility to get funding at a later stage. But still, there are many things to consider before we proceed to an OPS investment. And for this, we will move to the second part, which is the technical session. And we will start with the EELIN, and we will see how the EELIN project is taking care of these, let's say, delicate matters on how to proceed to the OPS infrastructure. Matters that have to do with the pricing, matters that have to do with the taxation, the harmonization of the technicalities, not only in the same region, but also between vessel and ports and all these things. And then we will have also the voice of the OPS providers to discuss about the equipment and the solution that they can give us, and also some lessons learned from current projects. So I want to invite now my good colleague Rocio to take the floor and give us an overview for the EELIN project, and to tell to the audience what we are doing and what we have accomplished so far. Rocio.
Can you hear me well? Yeah, I think so. Okay, well, hello, good afternoon. First of all, we would like to thank the organization of this Sea Future event to give us the opportunity to present our project, EELIN. I'm going to give you a very brief overview of what we are doing in this action. And then my colleague Jorge Lara from Fundación Valencia Port, and also our partners Hydrus and Protasis will go into more details around the 3 activities that are already ongoing. So just to introduce what's ELIN. ELIN is a European flagship for onshore power supply that aims to accelerate its deployment in European maritime ports. It's an umbrella, and under this umbrella, up to now, we have two different actions. The first one is the ELIN Studies action that was already mentioned by our project officer, Mr. Clantonnet, and that is the first phase of the global project. It was submitted last year and was approved in the last call for proposals of the CEF program. And it started in June last year and will end in 2023. And then we have also another ELIN action that is called ELIN Works Valencia Port. In this case, it's not a studies action, but a works action, which aims to prepare the electrical grid of the Port of Valencia to enable the future supply of electricity from the ships calling at our port in the future. And of course, ELIN Global Project, it's an umbrella under which we want to have much more projects. And as already mentioned by Cinea, there is a very good opportunity in the CEF call that opened last week, more or less. But today I'm going to only focus on the studies action. It has three main objectives. The first objective is to ensure that a common, harmonized, and interoperable framework is brought forward in line with the current framework, and of course, in line with all the actions that are being carried out by the European Commission in order to decrease emissions by shipping and by port, and when they stay at ports. The second objective is to ensure the port-to-vessel compatibility in the TNT maritime network, because of course we know that even if this action is focused on ports, we need also to have a very close relationship with the shipping, and for this we have the activity 2, that is maritime fleet adaptation. And the third objective is to lead all the technical, financial, legal, and environmental studies that are necessary for the ports of the consortium to implement their works right after the end of the project. And this will be achieved through the development of 4 technical activities that will be summarized right after. Of course, as in other European projects, there are 2 cross-cutting activities. The first one is communication and dissemination, because it's crucial for us and for the success of the project to have a high impact among the port and shipping stakeholders in order to reach this deployment of OPS solutions in ports. And of course, because it's our obligation also to give visibility to the European funds that we are receiving. This action is 50% co-funded by European Commission. And the last activity is the management, which aims, as in other projects, to ensure the proper implementation of the action. Who are we? Well, in this project, 22 beneficiaries are working together, 13 port authorities, Valencia, Barcelona, Huelva, Gijón from Spain. We have also Venice, Trieste, and Ancona from Italy, Piraeus and Rafina from Greece, Koper from Slovenia, Constanta from Romania, and Lixoes and Azores from Portugal. But we have also 2 port and maritime public institutions. We have a Bulgarian port infrastructure company, through which the ports of Burgas and Varna are involved in the action, and also Marine Institute from Ireland, through which we have the participation and involvement of the ports of Cork and Dublin. And 7 port and shipping related entities are supporting the port authorities to implement their activities. We are consultancy companies and also engineering companies from the shipping and the port side. In total, 16 ports will implement the different activities that will be carried out in this project. As you can see in this In this slide, most of the ports are core ports, but we have also some comprehensive ports. They are located in different TNT corridors, and we have a very good coverage of European ports in our action. Just to summarize a little bit what we are looking for in the different activities, I want to say that in activity 1, the first objective is to implement the detailed analysis on the current situation of, on one side, the technical, the legal, and the regulatory framework in the member states of the consortium, and then also to, on the other side, to analyze the European legislation as well as the policy initiatives, incentives, standards in relation to the implementation of onshore power supply in the ports. Of course, focusing in the ports that are involved in our project. This will lead to the identification of the shortcomings and obstacles that the ports are facing for planning and implementing their works. The second objective is to report with recommendation on how to bring forward and to implement this harmonized framework, of course, having in mind and taking into account the legal and regulatory framework that it's already in place and that it's under development by European Commission. We are using different tools. We are, of course, working internally as a desktop analysis and that it's performed by the consortium, but we are also organizing different workshops with the key stakeholders. We have produced a questionnaire that has been distributed among European ports and has been responded so far by 52 ports. And of course, we are having many interactions and many meetings with stakeholders that are contacting with us through our stakeholders platform. With all these tools, we aim to have at the end of the project, well, in fact, for this activity next year, we will have a detailed analysis on the existing regulations that are related to onshore power supply at local, regional, and national level. And also, we will produce some final recommendation for a harmonized framework on OPS in European ports. This is just some screenshots so you can see, well, that we sent the e-link questionnaire that it's going to be presented by my colleague. And also we had a workshop with the European port associations. And also we had a common workshop with the Baltic Sea ports. In activity 2, the first objective is to analyze the standards relevant to ship-side installation for OPS for the vessels calling at the port of the consortium in order to harmonize the port-to-vessel compatibility. And as second objective, we aim to identify the technical and regulatory elements to facilitate the connection of the ships to OPS, with the final aim to provide operational recommendations, of course, taking into account IMO guidelines. Using the same methodology as for activity 1, we will have at the end of the project the following results. First, the identification of the relevant technical and regulatory elements to facilitate the adaptation and the connection of the ships to OPS in the ports of the partnership, and then to analyze an analysis of the standards that are relevant to ship-side installation for OPS for the vessels calling at our ports. And well, for this, we have also prepared a questionnaire that will be further explained later on. And we already had a workshop focused and addressed specifically to shipping lines and shipping associations. And then we have 4 technical activities that are focused and are dealing with the different studies that are needed and necessary for the ports to implement the works right after the end of the project. We have the front-end engineering studies at 16 European ports, also the environmental studies that are needed to implement the works. we will produce, well, we will elaborate or update the clean power supply plans of the ports of the consortium in order to ensure that onshore power supply is included in their internal strategy. And finally, there is a financial study where the partners, supported by some of the partners of the consortium, will elaborate cost-benefit analysis and financial blending schemes that will support and that will enable the ports to take the final investment decisions. So the main objective of all these studies is that at the end of the project, all the ports of the consortium will be ready to launch the tenders to implement the works. And the last activity I would like to explain to you is the communication and dissemination. As I said, it's very important for us to have a high impact and to be able to reach a lot of different stakeholders and work together in this project. And for this, we have planned different type of communication. We will have 2 large communication events. The first one will be at the beginning of 2022, and the second one at the end of the project. 16 local public demonstrations where the ports of the consortium will explain to the local stakeholders what they have done during the project. Also, different stakeholders workshops. One of them is today's workshop. And of course, we are using many different tools, such as our project website, the stakeholders platform, a project brochure, and also we will produce different executive summaries explaining what is being carried out in the different location of the project, and a specific marketing campaign that will be addressed to the shipping lines. I would like to end my presentation inviting you to join our e-learning stakeholders platform. You can find here the link, and we would be really happy to have you on board and share with us your views and activities regarding onshore power supply. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rocio. So, I like to call that e-link is also a mechanism that is helping the ports to accomplish these investments. And from what we have seen so far from the commitment of the ports and also their will to proceed, it's a rather successful one. And what is also important is that it's a mechanism that can be replicated to other ports in other regions. And of course, all these results have this possibility to be transferred to other stakeholders. So let's move to the second speaker of this technical session, diving more deeply to the outcomes and the results of e-link. So I will call Jorge Lara Lopez, again from Valencia Foundation, to speak about the Activity 1 results. So, Jorge.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me? Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you to the people that is here today to show you the results of the first results of e-learning questionnaire, and also the people who are online. The idea is state a play. You know that Rocio mentioned the main objectives of Activity 1 regarding the identification of shortcomings and obstacles regarding national, regional, and local regulation, and also try to establish recommendations to bring forward implement harmonized framework boosting the development of PS. In that sense, we have done some work, and also we are doing more work on that. We did an initial desktop analysis, also a kickoff. Only 10 minutes? Okay. I have to run a lot, but I'll do my best, okay? We did a workshop, technical regulatory in February 2021. And now let's go directly to the questionnaire we have done, okay? Because I have 10 minutes and I have more than 20 slides, so I will try to do my best. First, I have to say that we have designed a questionnaire with 27 questions. And we collect 52 responses. I have to say that the Port of Barcelona and the Port of Valencia join us in this effort to do the questionnaire with the correct questions, etc. And for that reason, we have collected a lot of information about, wow, what happened? Okay, yes. We have structured this this questionnaire in five sections or stages. General information, technical aspect related to OPS, specific relation and administrative aspects, and other aspects as financing, building facilities, etc. Okay. You can see here the picture of the port that have reply, 52. Sometimes there are some port authorities that give us some feedback on that. And you can see here the picture of the typology of the ports they are replying. Regarding some examples, we have seen that there are 36 ports from not out of the consortium. They are very interested on that. And also you can see the profile of the countries that they have replied, the regions, and if they have ECA zone, in which part is in Europe, etc. Regarding the 10T network, you can, according to the profile of the ports that have replied, you can see here the 10T corridors covered by the ports replying. Regarding the type of traffic, you can see here more or less the typology of the port, the typology of the terminals, and also the SIP calls per year, etc. For all of them. Also, the port ownership, according to the 52 responders, the port governance models, and also, yeah, some statistics on that. And here, I stay here a little bit because here we see the maturity levels of PS implementation in the port. We see the 52% that they are ambition for this type of OPS solutions. 21 are planned, they have planned these OPS solutions. 10 of them, they have completed engineering studies. And 7 of these responders, they have availability in these terminals. Regarding the type of port and the ownership of the port, you can see also more or less the figures. The state is all the ports that are owned by the state. They are very interested as ambition to provide OPS solutions. Well, okay. If we put the focus in the plan to install OPS facilities in the port, you can see that they are putting focus in container, RoRo, RoPax, cruise is not a mystery, but you can see here there are some other ports that are putting focus OPS in dry bulk and general cargo terminals. So we can keep an eye on that, and knowing that the 50% of more than the 50% of the vessels that are calling in our ports are not in this scheme of regular services. Okay, regarding this is the reply from the ports that have said, okay, we don't have OPS right now, but the profile of the ports that have replied, they say that 14 have replied this, that they have OPS installed. And here we will see 4 charts, okay? The first one will be those ports that they have OPS installed. We need to know how many terminals now, according to the sample of the questionnaire, okay, that they have OPS. Right? They are for 28, and if you regarding the vessels, I don't know how to say, yeah, when you are thinking about the terminal, also you have to mention how many vessels simultaneously can be supplied with electricity. In this sense, all the ports that have OPS ready, 67 vessels simultaneously can be supplied. But what is happening in the future? We see that according to the sample we analyzed, the future OPS terminals available in the near future will be 145 for these 52 responders. And there will be 211 vessels simultaneously supply in an ideal scenario 100%. Okay, here there are some statistics. I go very fast regarding the average voltage per type of terminal and the type of vessel for all the ports that they have OPS, the power in kilowatts per type of terminal, and the type of OPS interface per type terminal. Here, the standards of the OPS facilities currently, also the frequency per type of OPS solutions implemented, and the voltage frequency per total power. Okay, I'm gonna run more. If you ever, one question here was is if the electricity provided by OPS is completable renewable. Because if we don't have this type of scheme, we cannot assure that we are polluting less. In that sense, of course, according to the sample, 39 they say no, 5 yes, guarantee from origin, partially, and partially guarantee of origin 1. Main technology gaps. The main one here regarding the planning and implementing OPS solution is the cost of installations, of course. The cost of electrical power and economical viability of the service and lack of pricing framework. A lot of things more you have here. When they have the OPS facilities in the port, the ports have replied regarding the installation if it is part of the energy grid or not. And we see that the 87.5, this solution is integrated in the grid. Regarding the OPS facilities, where if they needed to have an upgrade of the grid, 60% respond yes, no 40%, and also if they are planning to install, the 88% of the ports have to upgrade and invest in the electricity grid. This is information about the type of ports and the port call time during the information, during the calls. And also here, the main barriers at regulatory level that may affect the adoption of OPS solutions in port. We see that here, one of the main barriers is the national level regulatory framework, but also you can see here that the regional level has a few impact. Also here, regarding any mechanisms to support emissions, etc., etc. What is the time? Okay, okay. I have to finish? Okay, I will do it. Any mechanisms to support emissions reduction in the port terminal OPS? We see that 52% they say no, they don't have, and 42.3% they say that yes. Here, if you already have OPS, please select who is managing the OPS service. And you can see here that the Port Authority, the Port Authority, they are managing this OPS solution. And also you see very few percentage of terminal operators, user, energy company that they are managing the OPS. When we are thinking about the same approach for those ports that don't have OPS, you can see here that the Port Authority maybe will manage this. According to the country also, when we are talking about environmental assessment, impact assessment, we see some differences regarding all the ports. And there are some people that say, okay, do we need environmental impact assessment? Depends. Also in a country, also in a region, is obliged or not. And this is some inefficiencies when you are looking for to roll out this type. If you have facilities in your port, please select what are the sources of funding. For the OPS ready today, we see that the 14%, the source of funding come from the Port Authority and also European Commission. But if we are planning to install OPS, now the 30% of the percentage, they are looking for European Commission aids. Okay, and I'm finishing. If you have already OPS facilities in your port, please, we need to know what is the minimum qualification of the team operating this OPS. Some of them says that should be an electrical engineer, and this is more or less the skill or main training needs they need. Skimming some quotes regarding some people who reply something about that. The real impact of OPS in GHG emission reduction, if the energy is from renewable energy, is very important. And we've seen in the previous slide regarding the mix of electricity. It requires a storage of the energy to cover the demand when arise, of course, and the combination of different energy sources. This is more or less the sample. We have opened again the questionnaire, tried to collect more information from the ports, from more ports to have more or less an overview of the OPS in Europe. Okay, next steps. We are doing more or less this. Also, a copy of this exercise for activity 2 with some specificities. And we are going to do two reports. The detailed analysis of existing national port regulations directly or indirectly related to shore-side electricity. And finally, a final recommendation for a harmonized framework on OPS in EU ports completed. That's all. Sorry for run, but I think I have to show all the things we have done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, we have seen a comprehensive analysis of the mapping of the OPS situation in Europe, and I believe that this is a very good input for the regulators and also the decision makers on the field. So let's move to the third, let's say, group of speakers, because now we have Mr. Astrinos Papadakis and Mr. Stefanos Dallas. We see them already on the screen from Athens. They will be talking about activity 2. Stefanos and Astrinos, please try to keep the 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Of course. Just let me know if you can hear me well, hopefully. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, hope it works, right?
Yes, yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you very much for giving me the floor. My name is Astrinos Papadakis. I'm a mechanical engineer in Hydros Engineering SA. And together with my good colleague Stefanos Dallas from Provas SA, we will briefly and shortly present the activities 2 and 3 of Whaling Studies project. Let's quickly move to activity 2, which is called Maritime Fleet Adaptation. And let me start by stating that during the execution of this activity, all the whaling partners are actively participating. Now, what are the main tasks of activity 2? As already described by Theo and also Jorge, we need to focus on ensuring and facilitating the port-to-vessel compatibility for the OPS adaptation. Activity 2 needs to identify and study all the electrical standards and the regulatory framework on an ad hoc basis as per port-vessel combination. And for this purpose, several scenarios will be studied based on the various arrangements, different vessel types, sizes, power requirements, etc. The best practices for the necessary vessel retrofitting that needs to be done for the OPS adaptation will be recommended also. Of course, taking into consideration the cost-benefit analysis. And finally, the most important one is that operational recommendations will be provided, finally, taking IMO guidelines as a reference in order to achieve the harmonization of a technical, legal, and regulatory framework for the OPS adaptation, hopefully leading to a final proposal to IMO. So what have we done and what are going to do in order to achieve these goals? There is a big questionnaire/interviews task. Detailed research is being carried out now by the formulation of these questionnaires that are distributed to shipping lines, classification societies, and flag administrations in order to extract general information, technical data, and also information regarding the regulatory and financial aspects. Apart from that, a very interesting workshop was organized with the participation of the shipping lines and shipping associations in order to start the communication channel with the shipping sector. During this workshop, apart from the other presentations, the most important thing was the OPS experience that was shared, the challenges, the opportunities, and the feedback from one of the main players of this OPS solution, the shipping sector. Finally, combining the outcome of these two steps, we will reach the analysis outcome in order to identify what are the relevant technical, regulatory, and financial elements that will eventually facilitate the OPS adaptation. So far, and following the kickoff meeting of Activity 2, of course, we started a very close cooperation with Activity 1, but also Activity 3, focusing on Activity 1 because we have a common path. The communication is continuous in order to avoid overlaps and optimize the task's execution. And apart from that, we have concluded with the formulation, but also the distribution of the questionnaires to the shipping lines, the classes, and the flags. As already stated, the workshop has been carried out, and the results are really interesting. What's next? We have started collecting the data from the questionnaires, and hopefully in the next months we will be ready for the preliminary analysis and the results of it. And apart from that, we will have the progress meeting in order to identify the status that we are and what are the next steps. Now, a little bit in more detail, a few words for the questionnaires task. There are two questionnaires actually, one addressing to the shipping lines and the other combined to the classification societies and the flag registries. Regarding the shipping lines, we have contacted more than 100 shipping lines visiting the ports of the Ealing project. Regarding the other questionnaire, classes and flags, all the Ajax members' classes and also the flags representing the visiting shipping lines have been also contacted. Regarding the structure of it, it is quite common in both cases. We try to obtain general information, identify the fleet, for example, technical aspects, what is the OPS maturity level in its fleet, what are the power requirements, etc., and also information regarding the regulatory and administrative aspects. Now, the next task that was mentioned, and a few words about that, the workshop. The workshop was carried out in May, was organized perfectly by Circle and Hydrus. We had more than 80 participants consisting of project partners, of course, associations, and the shipping lines representatives. 3 sessions took place, the institutional one with presentations by the associations that can be seen here, the Ealing session with our presentations actually, and the shipping line session, the most important one, where the feedback was provided by the shipping sector representatives. And in order to conclude this a bit in a rush speech, among others, the main points that occurred during the workshop. As already stated in the very beginning of this session, CINEA strongly supports OPS implementation, having already funded 22 actions. It has been clearly pointed out that it is very important to involve all the maritime industry stakeholders for this OPS adaptation. The most important players is the ports and the shipping sectors, the cooperation of which is vital, of course. Now, what are the main challenges that have been stated and pointed out? Among others, the various standardization requirements regarding the connection specs, the frequency difference that is faced between Europe and the United States, also high operational and capital costs for the installation of OPS. Apart from that, there is a great range of different power needs based on the vessel type, size, the age, etc., really making it more difficult. Except for that, there is a lack of existing infrastructure in the EU ports, making it a bit more difficult for the shipping lines to invest on this. Another point that was stressed is that it is very important to include OPS in the new tax regulations. For example, add the tax exemption regarding the electricity provided at berth. Another technical detail that was pointed out, it is very important to achieve the paralleling with the vessels on board already existing electrical systems, since blacking out is not really preferred. And last but not least, it is very important to make OPS competitive and financially sustainable in order to push more vessels and more shipping lines to proceed to the required retrofitting. That was from my side. Hopefully it was quick. I will pass the floor to my good colleague Stefanos Dallas from Protasis in order to proceed to activity 3. Stefanos, I'm muting and I will switch the slides at your convenience.
Okay, thank you very much, Asternos. Proceed to the next slide. Okay, so as Asternos and Rothio mentioned before, activity 3 is the main activity of this healing project, because it includes all the OPS studies that are going to be performed in this project. So the main task of this activity is to perform all the FEED studies that are needed in order to be ready to proceed with the tender documents. Protasis will perform the FEED studies for 5 ports of the consortium: Piraeus, Rafina, Constanța, Burgas, and Varna, while the other ports of the consortium will going to outsource their studies. Next slide, please. So I'm going to describe you how is the progress studies for the ports that were in charge. I'll begin with Piraeus. We have concluded with Piraeus with 2 potential scenarios. The first one that we can see here, we are going to build one main cold iron substation that is going to supply all the 5 OPS positions that are going to be implemented in this project. Next slide, please. While in the second scenario, they're going to be build 4 substations that are going to supply with power the 5 OPS berthing positions that are needed. Next slide. So in Rafina port, we are going to implement 4 OPS positions for a total power of 4 megavolt amperes. The 2 OPS positions are going to be high voltage and power equal to 1.5 megavolt amperes, and 2 low voltage positions of 500 kilovolt amperes. Regarding the Constanța ports, we have already cooperated and we have concluded with the berthing positions, and also we have examined the power for its OPS positions, and as you can see in this table, they of course they need the OPS position for about 60 Hertz, and the power will vary from 1 megawatt to 5 megawatts. Next slide. So regarding the port of Burgas, we have 5 positions and the port has already sent us the vessel types. According to this type of vessel, we are going to conclude regarding the power that of each cold ironing installation. Next slide. The same here with Varna. Here, of course, we have 3 berthing positions, and we are going to perform the studies for these 3 positions. Next slide. Regarding now the other ports, we have all the data that we need in order to have a general preview of the studies progress of these ports. We can see that the ports are estimating that maybe by the second semester of 22, they are going to have completed all the studies, and I think we are in track with all the deadlines according to the schedule of the healing project. I think Astinos, okay. I was really quick, I guess. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and really appreciate it about your time and the information that you shared with us about the progress of the studies of the ports that participate in the healing, and also the feedback from the ship owners and the class classifications, as Trinos mentioned. So let's move to the third, or to the fourth, let's say, part of this technical session. And we are now ready to hear the voice of the OPS providers. First, I will give the floor to Christophe Guignon, Product Manager of WebTech Corporation. Christophe?
Okay. Okay, thank you. I want to thank you for all the sponsors, Circle and Healing, to get me the opportunity to share with you my weekly experience on designing cost-efficient solution for OPS, cold ironing, and short-to-ship solutions. I receive weekly calls from customers saying that I want an OPS solution on my port, and when I revert to his question, so means, what is, do you explain me a little bit your configuration? And they say it's normal, it's standard, so means, but the reality is different. You can see that each port are different, even though you are equal. Second things that we have to challenge is the maturities and the knowledge of the end users, with sometimes the owner of a ship, the owner of the land, and the consulting company and or the system integrator. So in a conjunction of these 2 arrows, so it means we have to deal with 4 quadrants, meaning that the benefits for each of them are completely different based on the maturity and the knowledge. So how we can get the business? We got 2 phases, pre-phase tenders and tender phase. And you can see on these pictures that there is a lot of stakeholders that we have to deal with. And mainly the top 3 are on the top of the slides, means electrical system integrators, port authority, and consulting company. And I am trying to explain it a bit with a scale of arrows, what is their influence to get a job. So meaning that when the tender is already issued, so means our main customer is the electrical system integrators. Based on that, each solutions are unique, and we have a lot of questions to ask to the port to be able to design cost-efficient solutions. So means, like, as you can see here, describe a little bit. This is the top 10 questions that we have to deal with to design stationary solutions or mobile units. Some of the current solutions in operations, worldwide speaking, mainly for high voltage and low voltage ferries. A new one, it's a mobile unit for high voltage ferries operated in Guinea with some specific requirements regarding the unknown location of a hash door on a ship, high tend range, most about 9 meters range to compensate. Everything is battery driven, but it should be managed by one tax people in charge on a key side. Over small solutions for low voltage and OSV offshore supply vessels that we have already in operation mainly in Baltic, in Norway. Norway is a very, very attractive place to deal with at the moment due to Enova funding. Coming back to a little bit on the cruise business. So we have a chance to solve in China 3 equipments. And if you can see on the right side of the slide, so this is our mobile unit, who is running now for 5 years in Altona. We got also 2 successes this year in Kiel and Rostock. All of them have been commissioned by IDA. So it means, and we got a very good testimonies for their customers and the usage, roughly 2 calls per week at the moment. Oops, sorry. Okay. To give you some something to keep in your mind. So it means we cannot create so standardized solutions, even though there is an IC standard A005 that we are dealing with worldwide speaking, meaning that every solutions are unique. It's very rare that we can solve 2 or 3 units at the same time, but we should be possible in the next 5 years, I guess. We try to avoid copy-paste solutions, and for sure, so it means each key, each berth is different. So it means we cannot say, I want something to connect high voltage, low voltage, ferry or containers on the same unit. Our motto, safer, smarter and greener, so it means safety matters, easy operated matters, and decarbonization matters for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Christophe. It's really interesting to see the particularities of each solution. So the next speaker is Chris Donovan from Cavotec. Chris will be talking about, I think, a Maltese project, among other things. So Chris, the floor is yours.
Cool. I feel like I'm in a business boxing match now. Okay, well, this morning, I trust you're all here to hear about our magnificent work and our magnificent products. What I wanted to talk to you this afternoon about was just to actually show you an example of European Union work, what Cavotec has done. And I wanted to take a case study and talk about shore power in Malta. We have some colleagues here from Malta, so good evening to you. So this morning I talked about shore power and cruise ships as almost being a perfect storm, cruise ships particularly. Cruise ships, when they're in a port, often they're in a built-up area, and emissions are really quite an issue. And often, actually, it's the noise that is an even bigger issue. If we look at what has been the situation in Malta, Malta is a beautiful historic island. Valletta, the port, welcomes, I think it's millions of tourists, about 1 million ship-bound tourists on cruise ships. And their objective was to reduce the ship emissions in the port by 90%. But as I said before, it's not just emissions, it's the noise. Now, there is or was an EU-funded initiative driven by Infrastructure Malta. And essentially, it was the provision, or it is the provision of shore power on 5 different quays. Calvatech partnered with another integrator, with Nidec. Nidec are producing the step-down transformer frequency converter. And we've worked together on the junction box and the cable management system for all 5 quays. Now, what we have provided is the Power Move product. One of the interesting concerns that they had in Malta was not just the hot temperature, but the sun. If you look at the vehicles that drive around the Malta island, you'll see that they are quite damaged by the sun, and there was a little bit of concern that there would be sun damage on the shore power equipment. So we were not only looking at environmental issues, but the design, flexibility, and safety, providing them with a foldable mobile solution with minimized height and a remote controlled arm. And essentially, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I would like to thank all of you participating in the technical session. I hope the audience enjoyed the presentations. And now I would like to ask the next speakers that will participate in the Q&A session and the round table discussion to join me here on the panel. First, I would like to call Katrien van Itterberg, coming from the port of Antwerp, a products manager at Sustainable Shipping for the port. Then I would like to call Anna Arevalo, Energy Transition Management from the port of Barcelona. Okay, I see somebody coming, so I'm not alone here. Okay, Mr. Franco Porcelaccia, Vice President from Carnival Corporation. And Andrea Dambra from Grimaldi Group. And last but not least, Stamatis Fradelos from DNV, Regional Bulk Carriers Segment Director, Maritime, Southeast Europe, Middle East and Africa. Stamatis, you are covering almost all Earth. Good to see you. It looks like, Stamatis, I will give you my seat. And I will take this one. So we are a big company here. To go there?
For you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I will move closer to Katrien. So, First of all, how is your hearing of the panel? I think it's good, okay? You hear me? Okay. Then we will need also another microphone, or these are working? Is it working?
Test.
Okay. So after we made all this technical assessment, as I was saying, we are a very balanced panel because we have ship owners and ship operators and port operators. We have representatives from the cruise industry and also ROPAX, ROROS, and LOLOS, maybe from Grimaldi. So you're covering, let's say, the primary target of this OPS infrastructure, the cruise industry and the container vessel also, and the ROPAX ferries. And we have ports from the Mediterranean Sea in the north, and we have also the classification society that will help us to analyze all the aspects here. So let's start with the cruise industry. The representative from the cruise industry, Mr. Porcelaccia from Costa and Carnival. And I would like to ask you to give us your insight and your view from your sector, from your company, about the OPS, how you see it in your company. I mean, what are the issues that you want to see being solved? What is the energy that you require in your ports? Issues about the standardization, and anything that can help us and the audience to understand a little bit more about how a big cruise ferry company is thinking about OPS.
Good evening, everybody. I represent here Carnival Corporation. Perhaps you know that Carnival Corporation is the biggest company operating cruise ship in the world. Costa is the Italian branch, and AIDA is the German branch, the European branch at large. We have experience, quite a lot of experience on cold ironing, because especially the company that operates in the States, in the Pacific coast, they used to do cold ironing since a long time. So the ships that belong to those operating company of the group are mostly equipped for collecting power from shore. Different stories in Europe, except for AIDA that has experienced already in a few occasions the shore power, getting shore power. In the Med, I would say that we are still at zero level at the very beginning. Nevertheless, I'm talking about Costa especially. Costa today operates 14 vessels. None of them was able to get power simply because they are operated in ports where there is not this possibility. We look with a lot of interest about the development of this technology. We encourage the ports. We had several discussions with the ports, Marseille, Genova, Savona especially, explaining which are our needs. And we hope that they will follow, because we are eager to use shore power in ports. As a matter of fact, we have made quite an investment to equip our ships for being able to collect shore power. But nevertheless, the ships that are ready, nevertheless, we haven't even tried and commissioned the system because we didn't have the opportunity to do it. We never went in a port where they were ready to provide shore power. So we are looking at that with a lot of interest. I can make other comments on the second term concerning cost, concerning preparation and that kind of stuff.
Okay, thank you very much for this initial statement. Let me go now to the representative from Grimaldi Group, Andrea. So we are talking about investments, not only ports, but also to make a transition in the shipping industry. What this means for your fleet? How much cost is associated with this retrofit, or if you want to build a new vessel? And what kind of incentives you would like to see in order for you to proceed on this one?
Yes, so thank you for the question. We as a ship owner don't have in this moment many ships equipped with the shore connection facility. So we have to retrofit our existing ships in order to let them be ready to receive the cable from shore. And of course, this is something that a ship owner has to study and to invest to do it. On the other hand, we know very well which is the cost of kilowatt hour produced on board with an engine. And our feeling is that there is the risk that at the end we will have to retrofit our ships, so to pay for the retrofit, and the risk is that we will pay also the kilowatt hour more compared to what we pay today producing it by our own with our engines. So we are ready to the transition. We today have 7 ships in operation with the batteries that are recharged during sailing and used during the port stay to switch off all auxiliary engines. So we believe in zero emission in port. We want also to invest in retrofit for the cold ironing, but it must be a competitive solution compared to the actual one. So also answering the question, which could be the bigger incentive of any incentive we could have, because we saw in a previous presentation that from a founding point of view, there is nothing for ship. Everything is for terminals, for ports, but nothing for the retrofit on board. So we think that maybe ports has to do something to give us the price of kilowatt hour competitive compared to what is what we pay today.
I think now in CEF2 you will find a lot of possibilities to finance your project, but I understand that the main fear, let's say, for the operators, for the ship operators, is pricing, taxation, as regards to the competitive fuel of diesel. So how you would like to see this pricing model of electricity on the ports compared to the diesel? Would you like to see similar practices like diesel, freedom to select the provider of electricity? Do you have some thoughts about these issues?
Question 4.
Who would like to take this question?
Honestly, I don't know if all ports are in the same, have the same mechanisms. So maybe it is a question that we can address also to port authorities, asking them how they can incentivize this cost.
Okay. Catherine?
Yeah, the question that we struggle most is, what is the actual cost of a kilowatt hour on board? Because this is really what we aim for as infrastructure providers. We want this infrastructure. It solves a lot of societal problems for us in the Port of Antwerp. It will solve our nitrogen problem, nitrogen oxide problem, giving us literally room to breathe and room to expand. So we want this, but when we ask for the price of kilowatt hour on board, we get such a variety of numbers. So we do not know what to aim for. And we have rules and regulations to apply that we cannot transfer public money to private companies. So it has been a very delicate exercise. I think we are doing, or we will do one with, with you and Andrea in the future.
We are trying to do a project together, so maybe we will finally arrive to a conclusion. We will let you know in next year.
Yeah, but this also includes a point of data. There just is, for ports, we question all of the ports. We question all the ship owners separately. We receive all separate responses. We do not know yet which vessels are 50 hertz, which vessels are on 60 hertz. Where is the connection point located for container carriers? How much meter cable do they have on board? And these are so many questions that we ask individually. The total cost of ownership of your kilowatt hour, what is it? So I think we might be able to work a bit more efficient on that and to look to Europe for that maybe.
Yes. Average evaluation is that the cost of the kilowatt hour produced on board is 10 cents per kilowatt hour, approximately.
We hear numbers varying from 7 cents to 17 cents per kilowatt hours on a total cost of ownership for a similar vessel type.
Yeah.
So it is very tricky whenever it comes out that your total cost of ownership is higher. We get our ass kicked because we're transferring public money. So it's a very delicate exercise.
Yeah, that's true. Of course, the cost I gave a number which is an average, because what play on the cost is the type of vessel, the energy, the power of the engine, how it is used, while it's producing, what is the rate of the engine. So what is the cost of the fuel, of course, and which fuel you are using.
Do you calculate the loop oils? Do you calculate the running out? Do you calculate total cost of ownership or clear cut cost per kilowatt hour, just a fuel cost? That make a difference. And it's the fuel cost. You gave me the marine diesel, marine gas oil, or the heavy fuel oil? Because I guess you have scrubbers on board.
Yes, well, the ships, passenger vessel, normally the one that we operate are diesel electric. So we have a number of engines that can be 4, 5, or 6, depending on the size and the class of the vessel. And when the ship is in port, normally we use one to the maximum level, maximum rate, let's say 70–75%, to optimize the consumption and the running of the engine. So under those conditions, with the actual cost of the fuel, heavy fuel oil or MGO, mainly we use heavy fuel oil when we have a scrubber. Not all the ships and not all the engines are fitted with scrubbers. So sometimes we use MGO in port instead of the scrubber. Nevertheless, if we wanted to give a number, a good estimate is 10 cents, maybe 9, but it doesn't matter. 10 is a better number, so with a 0 final. So, but what I want to say, we can argue about what is the cost, but what I would like to say that we very much would like to contribute to reduce the impact of our ships in the port where we go. And we demonstrate that, made a big investment, because we were the first to operate LNG vessel. LNG vessel is very expensive in terms of cost when it is produced, when it is built. So we believe that we have made this investment and we are very happy for that. We've made a big investment on scrubbers, and we have made also big investment to equip the vessel. To equip a vessel of the size that we operate for receiving power from shore, the cost is in between 1 and 2 million. So it's a big investment. So what I'm saying, bottom line is that we would like also to be able to pay for the energy, not too much over what is the cost for producing, because it would be all the burden is on us. And we have to compete with the other ships operator. So we have this responsibility also.
Okay, so it's very interesting, this live dialogue. Yes, please add.
Yes, no, I would like to add that I think that we are all in the same vessel. No, at the end, we as port have to invest a lot of money. In case of Port of Barcelona, we are speaking with you also, but we have to do a new grid, a new electrical grid, only to supply 50 megawatts to the cruise area. It's an investment nearly 50 million, something like this. We are very happy to do it. We have been planning before the new legislation, so we are the first for cruises in Europe, and all of us are in the same vessel in terms of reduce impact of pollution and improve the air quality. You know that in Barcelona we have a lot of problems with the city, so we have to do it, and we are going to do it. This is not a problem, but we think that we have to do it, and it has to be competitive for you because you are our customer. So if we arrive to do all the investment, if we have the port equipped to give you the service that you need because you want it, because you have your vessel prepared, is nice. But if at the end it doesn't come a new legislation in order to give electricity to a good price for cruisers, this has no sense for nobody. So I think that we should, as we are doing, work together in one direction, that is provide with infrastructure in the vessel on the quay, but overall to move the legislation in order to have a legislation that help us to have reasonable things, because at the end the vessel can have the energy on board. This is just like this. So we have to, all of us want to have a better port with better air, clean air, but we need to do in an appropriate cost for the customer. If not, has no sense because the customer go out. So.
Okay, this is totally understood. But I guess it's not only the pricing model. It's also about some other issues like availability of power, or the class requirement about shore power connection. And recently it was on the news in Greece, Piraeus announced that in order to bring electricity, adequate power in the port, they will need to invest something like 70 million euros to increase the power in the port. So we're talking about huge amount of money here.
Also because it must be a green electricity, otherwise it doesn't make sense.
Yes, the big question is how we store electricity. So the question is to Stamatis, and then I will come back to you, Katrien. We have seen these concepts, alternative concepts, how to ensure the power and the energy inside the port with the electric barges concept. And what's the view of the class about this? And then if you can tell us a little bit about the requirements as regards the technicalities of OPS.
Yes, good evening to all. I think this is an option that should be considered as well. I heard you mention at the beginning in your opening of this session that the cost of the berth is about 2 to 5 million, right? And maybe for Piraeus could be even higher. So this is an option that could be considered for ports that they do not have very frequent visits of that cruise ships, etc., and maybe they are located in different berths. So you can have such a barge, for example, to provide electricity. Of course, this has been needs to be assessed, let's say, in connection the barge or the vessel with the ships that's going to serve in this particular port, and the port authority needs to be involved in the assessment process, because you need to match the capacity, the power rating capacity of the barge with the vessels that needs to serve, and also to assess the berthing requirements, especially in different periods, in summer and in winter, that you have different frequent of port visits, and sometimes this vessel, this barge can operate and can be used to supply power to shore as well. This is something, I think there is one barge that operates in Hamburg, and I think and serves cruise ships, but also I think during the winter also provides power at shore. They are using LNG. From class perspective, on technical aspect, we have developed special rules, a special part of our rules. It is called gas power plant, where we have gathered all the requirements in terms of talking for the LNG, which is the solution available now, about the safety aspect of receiving, bunkering LNG, handling, burning, etc. On board, but also the shore power connection. This is part of, let's say, related with another part of our rules. We have a separate notation, the shore power, where we have requirements for the safe connection in line with an standard, the IC standard 80,005.
Okay. So maybe one last question from my side, or two questions in one that can be answered from all of you or whoever wants to answer. How we can speed up the implementation of OPS according to your view, and how you stand it. What we started to discuss a little bit also, how we source electricity, because electricity from the grid is a mixture of fuels. Some of it is coming from renewables, some from natural gas, but still some is coming from really diesel and other forms of carbon fuels. So how we speed up the process, and what we can do in order to ensure that electricity that we get for called OPS will be green. Your view. Catherine, you want to start?
Okay, I will start. I think what Europe is throwing in the ring now is a good start. In order to kickstart this project, we do need a certain critical offtake mass from vessels. We do need an amount of funding, and we do need an exemption of OPS. And I am quite confident that if a tax exemption, a significant tax exemption, and I'm quite confident that in that stage we can reach your price per kilowatt hour, we can match it, and we can even do better. I am quite confident about that if we create the right framework and the right circumstances. If on top of this, the electricity has to be green in this stage, depends on how you define green. Is nuclear zero emission, but is this green? No, I think I am a sustainability manager, but I think this is such a difficult exercise to reach the point that if you put now in this stage the requirement of 100% green, net zero, non-nuclear energy for countries that are majorly nuclear, it will not be feasible in this stage. Let's do now, just realize the OPS, wait a little bit until the other market-based measures have kicked in, until we can compete against green fuels, and then we should go for green electricity. I would suggest to take it step by step.
Well, I think it's a quite complicated question, because it's not on our hands. No? In Spain, for example, the mixture of energy is like a pyramid. If everyone start to ask for green energy with certificate, etc., it can arrive a moment in which there was not be for everyone. So I'm agree with Catherine that I think that we have to start to move as far as possible, because infrastructure imports
over terminal that are already done is not so easy, it's not so fast. So we have to go on this direction. All of us have in mind that it has to be with green energy. It has no sense in other way. And I think that also the alternative energy move in this direction, in the right direction, and we in the way we go in parallel. It has to be like this, but it's a problem to be worried about all of this, because it's completely different in each country, and it's a big, we can say, problem for everyone. At least maybe not a problem, but it's something very difficult to manage from our side, as a support, at least from mine. I don't know, Carnival or Grimaldi, they are powerful, but
I don't know if anybody wants to make a statement. Maybe you are covered by the comprehensive answers from the ladies. I don't know. Or somebody from the audience would like to ask something to the panel. I think that what is certain is that we need to enhance dialogue between the parties, and we need also to work on a collective way. And if something was the outcome of the COVID-19, is that if we work all together on a collective way, then we can really fast and effectively do miracles on that. So then we can call it a day. I want to thank the panel for joining here in La Spezia. It was a very interesting and live discussion, and I hope the audience really liked. I want to thank the organizers, and I really hope to see you all soon without the masks. Thank you very much.
thank you.